Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, March 9th. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren is here. Commissioner Fleet?
Here.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Here.
Commissioner Anton?
Here.
And Chairman Pill.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you're seated, would everyone who is planning to give any testimony tonight, either for or against, please stand, and I'm going to give a short oath, and I would like you to raise your right hands and respond in the affirmative with an I do if you agree. And this is for anyone who's going to speak up here tonight. I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
I do. Thank you very much. While you're sitting down, please silence any cell phones and pagers that you might have, please. All right. One other point of order. When it's your turn to come up and speak, there is a sign-in sheet. So the first thing we'd like you to do when you do come up is to please sign in with your name and address so that we have the proper information for keeping our records. Thank you. All right, we'll start out with, I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the February 9th, 2011 meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fleet, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Any discussion on the motion? If not, Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
And Chairman Pill.
Yes. Our first order of business tonight under new business is Planning and Zoning item 11-012. I will apologize in advance for the pronunciation of the name here. Zufeng Yuan regarding the property located at 6001 South Richmond Avenue, Willowbrook, Illinois, for the following. A, map amendment request to rezone from R1 single-family detached residence district to R3 single-family detached residence district upon annexation. Is there anyone here for this? Please sign in and tell us what you'd like to do. Okay. Welcome.
I'm Shifeng Yuan. I'm by the house on May last year. I feel the water smell very bad. I asked my neighbors if they have same problem. I think because the west of street is like a wetland. It's Ashford Lake. I think it's the right is Ashford open space. They're very bad. So I cannot fix the water problem. So I applied to join Westmont Village to get public work service. That's why I asked to apply to join the Westmont Village.
Okay, very good. Would staff like to add any comments to this?
The lot that we're discussing is about a half an acre, and it's just inside of the boundary agreement that Westmont has with the village of Willowbrook. The property is adjacent to subdivisions, Ashford and Fairfield, which are both also zoned R3. So the request before you right now is whether R3 is the appropriate zoning district if the village board were to grant annexation.
Mr. Kimball, any further comments? Okay. Is there anyone from the public who is here tonight who would like to speak on this issue, either for or against? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close the public hearing and we'll start with commissioner comments. I'll begin with Commissioner Fleet.
I went out there today, and certainly you are surrounded by, on the north and and west, as we show in the maps, and which are R3s, with an R2 further south of you. And I don't see a reason why we couldn't go to R3 for you if we came in.
Thank you. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yeah, in reading the document regarding this parcel, it falls well in the R3 area, and if I'm not mistaken, that it's similar to the annexations we've done south of 63rd, where the properties come in at R1.
It is similar, but several of those are actually R1A, which was a special district set up
Yeah, because
for
they're larger lots.
Right.
This is not as wide. This is 60 feet wide.
This
And
is about 80 feet.
80 feet, I'm sorry, that's right, 80 feet. And it falls well within R3. It's not large enough to be the other. So I have no issues with this.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Buren?
It would fit the requirements that we have for the R1A, that's south of 63rd, wouldn't it?
It could fit into that, but because there wasn't any other adjacent R1A zoning, staff felt it was
So
more
it's
in
strictly
character
based on the
R3.
frontage that,
Yes, the lot depth requirement of 125 feet is uniform throughout all of the single-family districts. So it is more with depth, setbacks, those types of bulk regulations.
I don't have any problem with it.
Commissioner Thomas?
No, I have no questions.
Commissioner Anton?
No questions.
And I have no questions either. So, any further comments from staff? Attorney? John? Thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion
Comments
for
from the public?
planning and zoning. Pardon me?
Public comments, Mr. Chairman?
We did that already?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
There were none?
Okay.
Public hearing was gaveled closed and it was official.
Apologize.
I will entertain a motion for planning and zoning item 11-012. Mr. Yuan, regarding the property located at 6001 South Richmond Avenue for the following. A map amendment request to rezone from R1 Single Family Detached Residence District to R3 Single Family Detached Residence District upon annexation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Anton, second by Commissioner Van Buren. Discussion on the motion, please. Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pill.
Votes yes. All right, our decision is a recommendation to the village board, and Shannon will contact you at the appropriate time to tell you when you will appear before the village board committee of the whole hearing, and they will make the final vote. You have our recommendation.
Okay,
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Next item is planning and zoning, item 11-013. Ron Gunter with the Westmont Park District regarding the S-curve property generally bounded by Cass Avenue, 35th Street, and Cass Court in Westmont for the following. A map amendment request to rezone from R1 Single Family Detached Residence District to R4 Single Family Detached Residence District upon annexation.
And one clarification with the way the agenda is worded, it's actually rezoning from R1 and R2. Part of the property is already zoned R2 within the village of Westmont, and the other property, if annexed, would come in as R1 and would then seek to be rezoned as sought by the Park District. Just wanted to clarify that typographical error.
Thank you, John. Mr.
Thank you.
Gunter.
Good evening. Again, my name is Ron Gunter, I'm Director of the Park District, and tonight before you is a request for us to annex into the Village of Westmont about a 0.75 acre piece of property. Along with that, then taking that with another piece of property and requesting a rezoning of the two that total 2.5 acres into an R4. Tonight, Bob Fleck, who is the Superintendent of Parks and Planning, is going to pretty much walk you through that and then field questions for you. So I'm going to ask Bob to come up, and I don't know if you've got the overhead available?
Is the overhead available for you
Yes, it
tonight?
is.
Your paper's down, it'll come up.
Okay. I'll let you know when I need that. Thank you. Dear Planning and Zoning Commission members, as a community provider of active and passive recreation and stewards of open space, let me stress the fact that the last thing the Westmont Park District wants to do is lose any existing open space in the community. However, in order to justify and better understand our request, you need to see it from the perspective of the Park District's comprehensive master plan. In the late 1980s, we analyzed our park system, and it was obvious that we needed neighborhood park in the southeast area of Westmont, near the McNaughton developments. In fact, this happens to be the only section of Westmont without a neighborhood park. In 1997, we applied for an Illinois Department of Natural Resources land acquisition grant to purchase a 4.7-acre tract of land. But unfortunately, we withdrew what would have been a successful application because of an unwilling seller. So you're aware of the location of this parcel. It is south of 55th Street on Wilmette Avenue. However, we were able to obtain a right of first refusal on the property. Since that time, the area has seen tremendous growth and increased property values. At this time, the Westmont Park District would not have the financial resources to acquire the land if it were made available today. 2 years ago, while discussing future needs and possible alternatives to meet those needs, the Park Board looked to the S-curve property as an asset we could possibly sell to help facilitate the acquisition of much-needed open space that would better serve the residents of Westmont. Why the S-curve? Let me give you a brief history lesson. The S-curve was given to the Park District in the mid-1980s as compensation for losing approximately 1.5 acres of parkland to the development of the Oakbrook Hills Hotel and Resort. This 1.5 acres made the extension of Blackhawk Drive possible and was necessary for the development of the hotel's golf course. To give you a better idea of this location, it's right here to the northeast of Ty Warner Park. The 4 acres of parkland, formerly known as Lot 28, was given to the village in the mid-1970s and deeded to the Park District in 1986. The remaining 2.5 acres, now named Blackhawk Park, was developed shortly after. The Park District's maintenance responsibilities at the S-curve began in the early 1980s after the realignment of Cass Avenue. Though it is open space, it is inaccessible to the residents of Westmont and does not provide any recreational opportunities, passive or active. The reality is that this property does not provide a true benefit to the residents of Westmont, and there is a greater need for parkland in another area of the community. It is for these reasons that the Park District feels the future sale of the 2.5 acre S-curve property would be in the best interests of the residents of Westmont. In 1984, the 2 parcels comprising the entire S-curve property were to be annexed into the village of Westmont, but only one was fully executed. We do not know why the smaller 0.75 acre parcel on the northwest corner of the property was never completed, but it is one of the reasons we are here before you tonight. Also, per our request, we feel a zoning designation of R4 would best match the surrounding Westmont zoning districts and provide the Park District with a greater return on the property. At this time, we do not have any plans to sell the property, nor do we have any interested developers knocking on our door. Let me reiterate that the Westmont Park District would never sell any open space unless we could acquire land of greater value for the residents of Westmont. If money was no object, we would not consider parting with any parkland. We also realize that any developer must adhere to the Village of Westmont zoning and land code development ordinance. If and when the property is sold and a development plan is presented to the Village of Westmont will review the petition and determine if it is in the best interest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Staff, would you like to add anything?
Bob's done a great job of summarizing the history of the property and how we kind of came to be at this place that we're at today, and the need for the Village of Westmont and park space. I actually had a question that might be beneficial for the people here and that are viewing at home, Bob. If you could possibly speak to how you arrived at the need for additional park and a little bit more on how the true shortage is estimated in terms of acreage needs per resident.
Certainly. The National Parkland Standards for the National Park and Recreation Association is 1,000 acres, 100 acres per 1,000 residents. We do not even come close to that. We have approximately 150 acres of parkland for a population of 25,000 residents in Westmont. We're considerably short. We're landlocked. There's not much we can do. Now in that southeast area of Westmont, what happened, as we all know, is McNaughton came in, created some very desirable subdivisions with a lot of interest, and it developed much faster than the Village of Westmont ever anticipated. We could not keep up with rising cost values. We did have this one particular parcel of interest. We were not able to acquire it. The individual wanted to stay in his home. The Westmont Park District would never condemn an individual's home, so we backed off. Acquired a right of first refusal, but for those reasons, we fall short in providing desirable open space for the residents of Westmont.
Thank you. The combined acreage here is about 2.5 acres, so I think I've used the term deceptively sized. It seems it's more acreage than it may seem in passing if you're just driving down Cass Avenue. The village did receive some correspondence from the Village of Oakbrook yesterday, which was passed around the dais prior to the meeting this evening. It's a memo, an interoffice memo from November 11th, 1982, for your reference. The adjacent zonings, in addition to being adjacent to the Village of Oakbrook properties, the adjacent zoning are B3, which is the hotel property, and R4, which is the general residence district. Staff wasn't really certain how the R2 zoning even came into effect for the southern of the two parcels. It really seemed to be an instance of spot zoning, which is something we try to avoid at the municipal level whenever possible. The R4 zoning there is contiguous property that is also zoned R4, so you could state that there may be an area precedent set for that type of zoning. As Mr. Fleck did mention, tonight we're here to discuss whether or not the zoning is appropriate for R4. If the village board did grant annexation of the northern parcel, that could be included. They could be consolidated in the future. If not, though, the southern parcel could still go for a request for rezoning. And all that being said, no matter what, the rezoning is what's on the table this evening, and site and landscaping plan approval would be required by the Village of Westmont. So we would have to review plans and determine what it is any developer may seek to do in the future. So this is really only the first meeting to begin to address the long-range plans there. We also are on the eve of a comprehensive plan rewrite. We just, this past Monday, awarded or we're in the process of coming to terms with the selected consultant, Halcyon Levine. So we anticipate that over the next 12 to 18 months, we will be in the intensive process of coming up with the long-term vision for the village. So that's also something to keep in the back of our mind and how this property fits in to the long-term strategy for redevelopment. I have nothing further unless there are questions.
Thank you, Shannon. Fred?
Nothing further to add at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Before we open the microphone for the public hearing, I'd like to ask our village attorney, John Zemanek, to speak on this issue.
Thanks, Chairman, and just a couple comments. The annexation of the portion of the property is not before the Planning and Zoning Commission. That is a matter solely to be determined by the village board. There is a draft annexation agreement that has been sent to the village to consider, which is very basic, and it does not provide any guidelines for any future development of this property. It basically says the property would be annexed to the village. There's no obligation in the Park District Code or the Municipal Code or village ordinances that property once owned by the Park District has to remain a park forever. It's within the right of the Park District to determine whether it has surplus property to sell or to hang on to that property as open space. The village does not have a zoning category for pure open space. This property is currently zoned, the majority of it is zoned R2, which allows for single-family residential development and also allows for certain non-residential development such as parks. If the Park District desires to sell this, which it seems they do if possible, they are allowed to come in and seek what is the highest and best use or the highest and best zoning for this property, and that's what this commission is charged with determining. Is it an R2 zoning like it's currently zoned, which would allow for single-family uses and other similar non-residential uses, or is it a denser use such as the R4? And you know, there's really nothing to guide you other than looking at the surrounding zoning perhaps and traffic patterns, whether there's been any opportunity in the past to develop this one way or the other, et cetera. I wish you luck.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I guess one other point as the village attorney was talking that was brought to mind, you know, it was anticipated that there might be some objection from the neighboring properties to the north, which are single-family residential properties, with regard to how dense could the development be, how tall a building could be developed if this is zoned R4. And Bob, I don't know if you or Ron wanted to maybe comment on that, what you might be willing to agree to in terms of a height or, you know, a maximum density.
Don't necessarily know if we want to put a number on it as to how many units could possibly go in there, because we don't have a developer interested in the property. Without that could turn some people away. We don't want to necessarily be married to that number. But in terms of density R4, you know, we've talked, in having talked with the village board, the idea of a large monolithic structure of condos is not of interest. We don't necessarily want to see that. The village doesn't want to see that. But the idea of residential-style townhomes definitely fits into the character of that neighborhood and the surrounding homes that are in that area. So that's one idea. The other is if height is something that is discussed, we'd be open to some discussion there. I know some of the homes in that area are pretty large and get pretty high. So I think 36 feet is the allowable height for an R4 district. So that is something that is open for discussion as well.
As a form of comparison, are you speaking generally in terms of like the Tartan Lakes development on 35th Street in Westmont?
That may very well be a good example.
Or the townhomes that are built in the middle of the golf course at the Marriott Oak Brook Hills?
Well, that's hard to say, because again, that's going to depend on the interest of a builder. Of a builder, any developer that wants to take that, when he feels is the highest and best use and most marketable property at the particular time. It could be either or, but definitely, I think from things we've discussed, Tartan Lakes it could very well be a good example of the type of development we think might be appropriate for there.
And 35 feet is the maximum height in the R4 district. It's the same height in all residential districts within the village.
I have a question. When it's specifically stated in your request that it be a detached single-family R4. Now that tells me something like, I mean, do we have, isn't that what it says in the request here?
That's what's on the agenda, and I think...
Yeah, it should be a general residence district.
Yeah, that's just a description for the overall R4 district, and it was probably mistakenly named in their agenda.
Okay.
So that could be misleading, is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that tells me zero lot line. Mm-hmm. Or I would ask the question about the McNaughton development, 55th Street.
56th.
56th Street.
Yeah, the Greenleaf subdivision.
Yeah, now that's a very upscale, single-family, but more for the empty nester, the person that spends the winter in Florida and comes back home, but it's very upscale. Would that be an R4?
That was a planned unit development, I believe.
PUD, so.
The R4 district does allow for single-family, two-family, and multifamily, so there's a range of opportunities.
Yeah, the correct terminology should be R4 general
Right.
residence, I believe, yeah.
Okay, so that would leave that somewhat open.
Any further comments by staff or our village attorney?
Nope.
Great. All right, we will open up the public hearing, and looks like we have quite a few people here. Yes, sir, you could be first. If you'd please just sign in and then give us your name and address.
Chairman and members of the committee, my wife and I are here to try and save our little park. Perhaps we are misinformed. Is it planned that there will be some building putting on that? I'm not too sure whether your plans are to allow building on that property, or are you planning on keeping it as a park?
Do you wish to respond?
Well, I'll try and clarify. You guys certainly can jump in, but I think the plan is, tonight, the only consideration is whether to rezone the property to a different residential, to an R4 residential district, so that the park district at some future date can see if a developer is interested in buying and developing the property.
Well, this is what we are concerned about, because we like that little park, and it's been my pleasure to walk through that park almost every day in the summertime. However, once the park is gone, you will never get it back again. So if you are planning on building on that property, this is our concern. Now, hopefully, you've all had a chance to walk through and see the property we're talking about. It's a nice piece of property, and it's very nice to have as a park. Let me put on another hat. I'm a municipal engineer, have been for 40 years, and the question in that regard would be, this property is serving as a retention basin for quite a bit of stormwater. Now, if you're going to build on it, what's going to happen to that stormwater? I don't think I have any more to say. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else care to speak on this issue? Yes, sir. Please just come up and just sign in.
I'm Alan Hanslick, and I live in the Midwest Club. Our backyard directly faces the property in question. And first of all, thank you very much for notifying us of this. You're in Westmont, we're in Oak Brook, and I had a chance to talk to Ron, and he was very nice on the phone, and you have great park system. So we can understand what we're trying to achieve here, and the economics and the realities of the world. You've got to use your resources properly. I guess I would just add a couple of comments. It is a beautiful piece of property, mature oak trees. Every time you travel south from Oak Brook to Westmont, you see the Westmont sign there, and you see that beautiful piece of property with those oak trees, and it gives you a certain kind of feeling, and you've probably done that. It's a good feeling. You know, no doubt you'll do what you guys think is necessary for that piece of property. It is a shame to lose it. I wish it could stay a park. It probably won't. If it doesn't, certainly, you know, our concern would be, and we do back up to it directly. We see the traffic on 35th, and we see what goes on. And the homes surrounding that area, our homes in that area, are all 30-foot level homes. Obviously, if there were to be a large apartment complex at 40 feet or something, it would be less desirable. If it is upscale townhomes, you know, 30 feet, similar height, then that would be more desirable. I did ask Ron, is there any chance we can leave it as a park? And he said, no, I don't think so. We should talk finances. But, you know, I just wanted to say, number one, we do appreciate the chance to come here and give our opinion. Number two, it's a beautiful piece of property, great trees. And number three, as you rezone it, I don't know if there's any way to limit the possibilities of what could go on that land if it is R4. If it is townhomes with some normal setback, that would probably be the most desirable. If it's a large apartment complex, that would probably be least desirable, at least for those of us who look right at it from our backyards. That's what I have to say. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
And to address your comments about limitations on future development, technically that is something that can be addressed in the annexation agreement. That's not the purview of this commission. That would be at the village board level. There will be publication in the newspaper for a public hearing on the annexation agreement at a future date, which may be at the end of March or early April. There will not be notice given to individual homeowners of that public hearing. It will just be in the newspaper, and the agenda will be published on the village's website and otherwise publicly posted. That is something that the village can consider, is restrictions on future development. I can say that I think from a staff level, the plan was not to restrict development, not address it in any way, and if a developer is ever found and they come before the village, then it will be looked at, you know, on a case-by-case basis at that time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to, yes, please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe this gentleman, he came in a little bit late and maybe was not sworn in.
The answer is I do.
Okay. Good.
I'll just for the record, I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, good point. Fred, out of curiosity, were you involved with the reconfiguration of the site when it was reconfigured?
That was a little bit before my time, I'm afraid.
I know it was done in the mid-80s, but there's someone who has a name very similar to yours from the 1980 files.
I arrived in 2003.
I have some fountain reading material. It's a lot of pictures, I don't think it's a lot. Oh, we lost it. Pictures of the water.
Thank you. Thanks.
I have 7 copies. Before starting with any questions I might have or any of the documents that I brought with, I wanted to just thank you because I have served on zoning commissions and planning commissions, so I thank the chairman and the members of the commission for their time, and I know you get paid so well to do this. In reference to the questions being brought to the table, my point of it is simply, I just hope that you do your homework. I don't want you to be any kind of, give a biased response to a zoning change, or to not leave your hat at the door, or to not do your best in coming up with what you think the decision should be to whether the site should be rezoned. And in examining the site, whether it should be rezoned, you obviously know that you have to take into consideration public health, safety, the welfare. Will it be protected, and will it not cause substantial injury to the value of other property in the neighborhood? We have brought out that there are sites that are immediately south of it that are zoned R4, but there are also sites immediately west and north that are single family. I was also curious if you had knowledge that the Westmont Park District was interested in selling the site, as a question that I brought to the table. We obviously have answered that. The third question was, do you acknowledge that the only reason to rezone the open space parcel would be to allow for higher densities in order for a sister agency to sell the property at a higher price? And is that a reason and cause to make a zoning change? Why was the open space parcel at the edge of Westmont deeded from the village of Westmont to the Westmont Park District, and then it was designated as open space? The 5 was on the Westmont Park District map. What is the open space parcel designated and why? It's designated as open space. And where I'm heading towards is, I don't know if everyone knows why 35th Street and Cass were reconfigured, and it was a very tragic accident resulting in the death. On the Westmont zoning map number 6, it says what is written on the subject's open space parcel and why, and on the zoning map, it's written as open space. You can see it on the sheets that are attached to you. 7 was, why was the intersection at 35th and Cass reconfigured in the 1980s? I hope you guys all know. 8, why did the DuPage County Highway Authority state that the proposed reconfigured intersection at 35th and Cass Avenue, what were they concerned about? And they were concerned about sight distance and good sight distance as needed for the requirement for the turn. So if you're making a 180-degree turn, you obviously want to see what's in between there. If you're making a 130-degree turn, it helps to have good sight distance in there, and that's why it is open space. So if you rezone it and allow something big in there, I just hope you don't cause another accident and another death. 9, what did the Village of Oak Brook's engineer write about the problem before the proposed 35th and Cass Avenue was reconfigured? And he was talking about less than desirable sight distance. The pages are attached. 10, with no development on the subject's open space, how much standing water is there on the site? I've attached 4 photos for you, and that wasn't from today's rain. That was shot before that. So it's even wetter today if you happen to walk around the site. 11 is, if one was to make a 180-degree turn, do you need safe sight distance? And that's the purpose of why it is open space. I went through one village's records, and we'll go through the other village's records of why that is open space. And I just ask that it continue to be open space for a safety concern. And one of your concerns when you make a zoning change is public safety. And I hope you take that into consideration. And then my last question is, have you guys contacted the Oak Brook Park District about them possibly wanting to sell the site? Because I think it is a great idea for you to get more land where you need it and to possibly sell the site. I'm not against selling it, I'm just against rezoning it. I happen to sleep with one of the Oak Brook Park District commissioners, she's my wife, and I don't know if you guys have contacted them since they have the money. Or even Saddlebrook, which also has money as well.
Well, we do know the Oak Brook Park District quite well. How much money they have, I don't know. I don't think it's a tremendous amount, but if they want to make an offer, they're more than welcome to.
Okay. Thank you for your thoughts.
Yeah. Just one follow-up comment. As I mentioned in our presentation, we don't want to lose open space. Is it a beautiful property? Absolutely. When I got out of college, when I was more energetic and a little more enthusiastic about doing physical labor, I was actually the one who got out there and eradicated all the buckthorn on that property, and in fact went out there and planted a few more oak trees myself. So yes, we do think it's a beautiful property, but we don't want to lose the opportunity to acquire property that's going to serve more residents in the southeast area of Westmont. Comment about possibility of having an apartment building there. Nobody at the Westmont Park District wants to see apartments there either. So if, I think, you know, upscale townhomes would be the most desirable.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Elaine Eng, and I live in the Midwest Club. My home backs up to the property, and I have an appreciation for it because I can look out my kitchen window and see all the trees, and I drive on Cass Avenue. And like Mr. Hanslick said, it does give you a very warm feeling when you see that sign that says Tree USA and those beautiful oak trees. And I certainly appreciate all the hawks that live there and come and do their feeding at my backyard at the birds. But my concern as a resident who's lived there at least 18 years is that cars, as this gentleman pointed out, a safety reason, is that cars driving eastbound on 35th Street often miss that S-curve and end up in that park. They've impacted trees. I've just sat at 35th Street and driving southbound on Cass and just look over and you'll see a car there with a very wide-eyed driver. So I'd like to let you know that now, if you do rezone that to be occupied by a single-family residence, which an R1 would be my choice, because in my opinion, that is an R1 area, Saddlebrook, all those homes on 35th, all the homes in the Midwest Club, that one house that sits on the S-curve of 35th that isn't in the Midwest Club, those are all R1. But you're going to require some heavy-duty bermage because cars are going to continue to miss that S-curve and to enter that area. And if there has already been one death, I think that's more than should have ever occurred. So you really need to look at that. And I don't know if these incidences, I mean, there was one incident last summer. There was the other incident several years ago when I was just sitting at 31st and Cass. The cars leave the road. And this is during the summer, dry road, sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. So you're looking at all other weather conditions. And that safety has to be concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one point of clarification, if I may. The residential districts, the zoning classifications that communities have, they are not uniform between communities. So your property may be zoned an R1 designation in Oak Brook. The Village of Westmont has its own R1, and the requirements may not be the same in terms of lot size, just to explain why it may not be suited for R1 in terms of the Village of Westmont.
From my point of view, I see all R1, and I see this beautiful open area with mature trees.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to speak tonight? Yes, sir.
My name is Gordon Jensen. I live at 3525 Cass Court, and I too would like to keep my little park, which I do walk when I can, and it's getting less often. My one concern also is the value of our property. I think it would be diminished if there are buildings put there. And that also would probably reduce the evaluation of that property for tax purposes. You're going to lose in the long run, and we're going to lose in the short run. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Please.
name is Marilyn Goodman, and I live on the curve there. And I have a terrible time getting out of my house, my driveway right now. They go around the curve so fast, and it's just going to be more people and more traffic, and I, of course, am very much against it. Not only that, but my property values will go down, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
My name is Diana Warner, and I'm here on behalf of my mom, Bernice Adamak. She lives on the property on the corner of 35th Street and Cass Court. And as the other folks have too said, we are concerned about what, in the event the property is sold, what would happen to that property. My mom's been in that property for many years, 40 years, and we like the park that is there, as other folks have said. And it would be a concern of us in terms of house values and safety, as well as what other folks have said. The properties around there are single-family type homes, and we have some concerns about putting in multifamily homes into that area. So I just hope you consider those things as well as what the other folks have said.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public like to speak on this? Anyone else? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this. And before we begin with the commissioners, I'd like either perhaps someone from the Park District or Shannon or Fred, perhaps just to discuss or address for a few moments the stormwater utilization of this property and how that would go forward.
Right now, it's not used specifically for stormwater. There is no storm structures on the property. It has what would be known as depressional storage. So does it hold some water? Yes. Does it collect runoff from elsewhere? It may get some from the roads, but it is not designed per se to do that specifically. It may just be arbitrary runoff or just the rainwater that falls on it. As we know, as you know, any proposed development would have to meet the stormwater requirements, which have even become more stringent in the last year to 2 years. So as a matter of fact, less stormwater would come off the site than what previously comes off of it right now. So would it increase stormwater runoff or flooding on any of its neighbors? No. By code, that cannot happen, and that would be verified before any development could be approved.
Are you familiar, Bob, with the adjoining property? Does Oak Brook have to drain its own? Is there cross drainage that goes across street borders and things like that?
Oh, all the time, all the time. You know, there's natural drainage ways and hydrology that has existed here long before development, and those cross boundaries all the time. Do we have any that I'm aware of coming back and forth between up there? It's kind of a landlocked parcel. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of contains its own rainwater.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll begin with commissioner comments, and we'll start with Commissioner Thomas, please.
When I read the proposal and that, I had a lot of questions on why a park district would want to give up open space and that, and Mr. Fleck has answered my questions satisfactorily. In order to, I see how you would want, or that I would want, to be open space. Have a very nice welcome to Westmont sign right there. It's one of the first things people see entering into it. I also see how you would want, that piece of property does not serve very many people. Neighbors walk through it. Some of them tonight have voiced their appreciation for that piece of property. I do understand why the Park District would be willing, under necessity, to give up that open space in order to get additional park space and usage in other sections of the village. Other people's concerns are not going to be addressed tonight about what will go there, when I think it's our responsibility tonight to give the Park District as much of a chance to do what they feel they need to do or are being forced in to do. And then once something is decided that's going to go in there or would like to go in there, it's still up to us again and the village to see best usage and watch it very closely, because I don't think it's that big of a piece of property for any mass construction. I mean, there's just not enough room that I can see. Maybe that's why I'm not a developer, I don't know. But I don't think it's that big of a space. So while also wanting it to be open space, I also see the need for, and agree with the Park District, wanting to increase the overall park usage in the village. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Anton?
I agree with Commissioner Craig said. It's a unique situation. You have to trade one to get the other. How big is the southern property? Is it an even trade, sir?
One of the comments I made in the presentation was we would never get rid of land unless we were going to acquire something of greater value. The property that we have right of first refusal on, and of course there's a lot of things that have to fall into place, but that's 4.78 acres. The parcel at the S-curve is 2.5 acres. In addition to that, the 4.78 acres happens to be adjacent to a 2-acre village site detention basin. That, in the ultimate scheme of things, would be incorporated into an overall larger park complex of almost 7 acres. So that would be the ultimate plan.
Thank you. All right, then, so what I'm looking at here is like with Commissioner Craig has said, you're doing a trade here, but what it looks like is this is up for sale right now. So it's a unique situation. We don't have a developer in here telling us they're going to put in a 7-story building. So it's for sale. If Oak Brook has a chance, if Oak Brook Park District might want to purchase it, we should have some people out here trying to get that to happen. Or another point I thought of, I mean, isn't there a great park right down the way, Ty Warner? I think that gentleman is pretty much into parks. Has anybody approached him to try and save it? I mean, there's a lot of residents that would like to have the park around.
All right. Mr. Warner is a private individual, very private individual. Yes, he has been a tremendous friend to the Westmont Park District. One thing, though, that we've learned with Mr. Warner is, one, it has to be his idea. Two, he needs to be the one to come forth. Once you go to him and ask for something, nothing's going to happen. We've never done that. We never will. Do we have a lot of communication with Mr. Warner? No, we do not. But has our relationship with him over the years been good? Absolutely. He's been a generous benefactor, but it's all been on his behalf and on his when he feels the desire to assist us.
Well, lastly, I think we have to give the Park District a chance to get the best value for this to get the other parks. So I agree that it should be rezoned to that, but it's not a dead item. It's for sale. I mean, anybody could buy it. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Buren?
Yeah, it's interesting. I suspect that of all those people who spoke tonight, we don't have a Westmont resident, or maybe one or two. Is that right?
No, we're all West.
All Westmont, okay. Tartan Lakes? No.
Cascourt.
Cascourt, okay. Okay, that's interesting. We hear almost every time there's going to be a development, we hear the safety. Oh boy, the traffic. I've been on this board for 38 years and I've heard it all again and again and again. But we have not, in my recollection, approved an apartment house in Westmont for years and years. It's not going to, you know, if you want to project ahead and think what might go there, just think about the environment there. This is an extremely high-value area, beautiful homes and everything, and whatever would go in there would have to be of that quality. And so I think that I would agree with my fellow commissioners that we should get the highest and best use out of this property. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Fidesco.
I understand the concerns and I agree with them, you know, as far as safety, as far as wanting to leave it as a park, but then I also understand the Park District's dilemma and that in order to service another area, they're going to need to get the money. And where are you going to get the money? This is a logical decision as far as I can see on the Park District's part. As far as potentially how many homes can go on this property, I personally definitely would not be in favor of any sort of condominium. As far as townhomes or zero lot line homes, I could see that potentially happening, but because of the shape of the parcel, I think that will reduce the number of homes that can be put in there. So it's not going to be desirable for a developer who wants to get best bang for his buck for the size of the parcel. I don't think it's going to be to their advantage. I think this is going to be possibly a development that would kind of lend itself towards somebody who wants to do it because they feel that there's a need to do it there. But I don't personally think there's a need. You know, I'm not so sure that's going to get sold. But those are my feelings. I think that we should, you know, as far going further, I think we should look at highest and best use, and that would be an R4, although could we annex it in as an R2, you know, or combine the properties and do it as an R2?
Yes.
We could. And then let the developer come and argue their point, if there is a developer.
Yes. That's absolutely, you're right. You know, you can reject this request, which is for R4, in which case it would come in as R1. The village could initiate a request, or the Park District could zone it R2, so it's consistent, but at that point I don't know whether it would matter whether there's one sliver that's R1 and the other R2. But yeah, if you think this would be too dense as an R4 development, then you should deny this. If you want to give the Park District the opportunity to find a buyer and think that R4 is its highest and best use, then you should vote to approve this. If you think R4 is the highest and best use, then I would not vote against this simply because there's not a developer in front of you.
Thank you. No further comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Fleet.
I agree with going to the R4 and bringing it together as a package to help aid in the sale. And as it is right now, if a developer came in, zoned R2, for most of the land is R2, or is it R1?
R2 is the...
It's R2 right
the
now. So
largest
somebody
parcel.
could come in and put up single-family detached housing with a top ceiling of 35 feet and be within what R2 allows right now.
Correct.
And by going to R4 for the whole parcel, then takes it to general residence with still a top measurement of 35 feet.
Correct.
And I just feel that the R4 would be more saleable. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Just a couple of summary comments first. So we have a situation where we have a piece of property that's in Oak Brook and a piece of property that's in Westmont. The bigger piece is in Westmont, 1.75 of the 2.5 acres. And the Village of Oak Brook, this is looks like a paperwork mistake back in '82.
They've already disconnected the property.
They did that last fall.
Yes. So it's
So the annexation is going to go through. That's going to happen, and the properties are going to become joined as part of Westmont. So that being said, that's really not something that's up for debate. That's happened. The Village of Oak Brook has already gone ahead and done that, and Westmont just has to accept it, and obviously they're going to do that at the next meeting. So what we're really talking about, as we've reiterated a couple of times, is just the question of where the zoning should stand. The Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't really control whether the Park District wants to sell property or not. That's outside of our scope and purview. So that's something that the Park District, which is a separate entity, goes ahead and takes upon themselves. They have to determine the best interest of that property and what their relationship with the property and the rest of the village and the community is. We're faced with this decision many times. As property gets developed, DuPage County has lost a lot of open space. So it's become very, very dense as far as its population is concerned. I understand their point at trying to go ahead and satisfy the needs of a greater number of Westmont residents down in the southeast corner, as opposed to a fewer number of Westmont residents up in the northwest corner, particularly since this property is, for all practical purposes, undeveloped. It's really just natural parkland. It doesn't have swing sets and walking trails and things like that. It's basically just a forested area. As far as the height and things, I also would not want to see something that would be cumbersome or out of place there. And I think there's enough checks and balances. I think part of our problem here is that because there is no buyer, it's so much easier when there's a buyer and a specific plan. You can say, oh, I like this, I don't like this. We don't have that. So we're really looking at something in the future, which is something they have a right to do. We don't really control that. They're just asking us for a change in the zoning so that if they get an offer or if they decide to market this in an aggressive manner, that they have more flexibility as far as their disposition of this property. I know that when the Village of Oak Brook approved the building on Canaan or Conan Court, those are relatively large homes over there. There was one up for quite some time, and I think that's very close to the other side of the Midwest Club. And those are big houses. I don't, they're not?
That land is nowhere near the Midwest Club, King Court.
Really? Isn't it your extension of the Midwest Club that runs right along Cass there?
Subdivision on the west side of Midwest Road, between 35th and 31st, south of the church.
There's two houses there.
Canaan Court.
There's two houses there that
It's outside the boundaries. Yeah.
well, as this property is outside the boundaries, my point is that those are probably closer to someone who is a resident of Midwest Club than the S-curve property. I looked at both of them, and that's just a narrow driveway apart from the fence line. this has got an improved street, and I think there's going to be setbacks because I don't think you can build to the points.
Right.
You can't put it there, so it has to be recessed in. So I think you've got your own village put in, and those are good size, those 2 homes in there, and I think there's going to be 2 more coming. Those are very, very large size homes, and I think they're in even closer proximity to the Midwest Club than this particular property is going to be. There is the option, this gentleman right here in the striped shirt brought up with regard to the Oak Brook Park District, the Village of Oak Brook, and I think you even mentioned the Saddlebrook subdivision as a potential, I don't want to say suitor, but someone who might have some interest in the actual purchase of the property and might want to keep it as an open space and things like that. So that certainly is something that could be discussed. I think the Park District expressed an interest in at least having those discussions if there was some something to sit down and discuss. So, you know, since annexation is really not a question, and the question is one just of rezoning, my personal opinion is that I favor the request by the Park District, because I think that we've got a piece of property that cannot have its 100% developed, or it cannot be 100% developed because of the unique shape of that property. And I think you're going to end up with, and it doesn't matter whether it's R1, R2, R3, or R4, all of those have a 35-foot maximum height. I don't know what the height of the buildings are on Canaan Court. Someone said that the single-family homes in Oak Brook are 30 feet, so you're within 5 feet. That's fairly close. We're not talking about a 60-foot building or something tall up there like by J. Alexander. That's not going to hit that area. And I also think that with the way that DuPage County has restricted stormwater, almost tightening that noose every single year, you're going to see an increase in stormwater detention because that property for the first time ever would be actually engineered properly to meet 2011, 2012, 2020. Who knows if that property is ever sold? So there is no buyer for the property at this particular point, and there's nobody running up to the office with a bag full of money right now. In fact, most of us are aware that this economy has been tough on development of that type. So it's not necessarily something that we're going to see in the near future. So anyway, that's my feeling right now. I think also that if this is approved by the village board, and if at some point in the future there is development here, most of that development, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, most of that development returns through planning and zoning. And I think that planning and zoning would be looking very closely at not only the stormwater questions, but the safety questions that were raised tonight. And we would also be looking at how the structures would fit into the local neighborhood. That's a beautiful neighborhood up there. There's no question about it. It's one of the cornerstones of the community, and we would want to see that area maintained and have the look and the feel that is there with the single-family homes as well as the multifamily in that general area. Any other comments by staff or commissioners? Yes, Ron, also please.
I did a tremendous job explaining it, but I do want to add a couple of things. First of all,
please.
The reason this is even before you tonight is because of the, when we realized that part of that one parcel was not in the Village of Westmont. And because of that, we felt that it was necessary at this time to proceed with the request for the rezoning. We do not have a buyer. I tend to agree with everybody who's here tonight. We don't want to see it lost. We'll do everything we can before we try to sell it, but keeping an open space. If it means the DuPage County Forest Preserves District, if it means the Oak Brook Park District, Saddlebrook, I think you'll find that we do not want to lose open space. It is a beautiful parcel, but when we look at it from our total master plan and we realize the importance of providing open space in the south end of town, it did not weigh as heavily or as high a ranking as that parcel is down south. So I say we don't have a buyer. There's no one knocking at our door. And the flip side of that, there's nobody looking at that 4.78 acres either to buy. So there's no urgency for us to hurry up and try to market this and sell it. We just thought the appropriate time now was to get everything done now. So if the time comes, we're ready for it. So I'm going to do everything we can, and I'm sure my board is, to see if we can remain open space. If money was no object, we wouldn't be before you tonight. We'd be keeping this and looking to buy that other piece of property. Unfortunately, we're in a tax, the tax cap went in, and we're very limited with our capital money. So I don't know if you have any more questions, but I really appreciate it. And I don't know if Bob has anything else.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, just maybe one additional comment. You talked about, the unusual shape of the parcel, the height limitation. Given the fact that this is kind of a crescent-shaped piece of property, it makes it even that much more difficult to develop, given that you've got 3 setback requirements from each one of those 3 sides. Now you're restricted to just a very small circle in the center of this crescent area, which doesn't give you a lot of flexibility in terms of development style.
It's perfect place for a giant house.
Thank you for
R4 zoning.
Any other comments? All righty. Well, then I will entertain a motion for Planning and Zoning Item 11-013. A map amendment request to rezone from R1 Single Family Detached Residence District to R4 General Residence District upon annexation. The area regarded as the S-curve property generally bound by Cass Avenue, 35th Street, and Cass Court in Westmont.
And just to clarify the motion, it's actually to rezone from R1 and R2 to the R4 district.
Thank you, John.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have the motion as amended by Commissioner Thomas and seconded by Commissioner Anton. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, would Mr. Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Fidesco?
No.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
And Chairman Pill?
Yes. All right. Mr. Gunter, you have our recommendation. You will be notified by probably Shannon Malik as to what time this will appear before the village board on a Thursday night committee of the whole. I think our attorney has indicated that this might occur sometime towards the end of March or in the first half of April. And I would let all of the folks know once again that planning and zoning hearings, you do receive written notification. You do not for the village board, but you could find those agendas on the Village of Westmont website, and they're also published in the Village Hall as well as in the local community newspaper. I thank everybody for their input tonight. Appreciate it very much. Staff, do we have anything else we would like to discuss tonight?
Mr. Chairman, just to advise the Planning and Zoning Commission that the Village Board did take 2 very important steps forward at our last Village Board meeting by awarding or selecting the consultant firm of House C. Levine to be the firm that we will deal with for the complete rewrite of our comprehensive plan for the Village of Westmont, and they likewise selected the firm of Tesca and Associates to represent us in a consulting capacity for the possible establishment of a tax increment financing district in and around the area of 63rd and Cass. So the Village Board instructed staff to negotiate specific details of a contract with each of these 2 consulting firms and to bring that contract back for the board's final consideration.
I have one thing in that regard. I, as you know, am a member of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee as well as the Wastewater Committee at CMAP, and last Wednesday we went through all of those who had requested some of the financing and assistance, and I noticed that we were on there. So I tried to put in a good word. I don't know if it's going to work, but anyway.
Well, we thank you for those kind words, Commissioner. Unfortunately, today we received written notification that they had 220 applications for assistance, and we were one of the, 15 or 20 that were in receipt of a cash award. So
we'll keep trying.
Yes.
We'll deduct it from Wally's pay.
Pardon me?
Deduct it from Wally's pay.
He's overpaid.
Thank you for
anyway.
trying, Commissioner.
Thank you, Fred, for the updates on both of those. Shannon, anything else?
I just wanted to mention that at last month's meeting, we had tabled the Westmont Cove item, the assisted living facility at 35th Street and Route 83. We still do not have a completed application from that petitioner, and that's why it's not on this evening's meeting agenda.
Great. Thank you for that update
also. And a
also.
speedy recovery to Chairman Richard.
Great.
Chairman Richards back next month?
As far as we're aware.
Good. John, our village attorney, any further comments?
Mercifully, no.
Great. Hearing no further comments, I will entertain a motion then for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Anton, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned.